just do the right thing. Be
cautious.
careful. That's just it. Yes, but then to answer your question, direct, yes, an illiterate can enter into a legally binding contract if he understands what he was doing at the point when he entered into the contract.
Okay, so from your experience here at the CPC, what are the usual sectors that you have this sort of, a consumer didn't read or didn't understand the terms and conditions, and you have, complaints coming in from that sector, bordering around this area?
Okay, aviation, promo tickets for aviation, it's cheap, it's this. You don't read the fact that there's a term, there's a condition attached to benefiting therefrom. You commit your money to it. Okay, you pay equity for buying a house. You have not taken your time to see, what conditions attach to that as well. You patronize a travel and tour company, for example. They say we have resorts all over the world. You read the fact that once you commit your money, it's non-refundable. You go to the bank, you don't see that you have to pay COT on some transaction or something. All of that, it's everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, you find all kinds of problems in contracts in every sector, cuts across every sector.
We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll continue with our discussions. Stay with us. Welcome back. We've been discussing contract terms, what you need to know. If you've just joined us, you've missed out on quite a bit. But you can catch up by following us on all our other platforms: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, our website. Our contact details are being displayed on your screen. So, Mr. Chimogu, we were discussing contract terms and how these consumers sometimes just block through the terms and the conditions. Now, what sort of pitfalls should the consumer, avoid? What safeguard measures do you have for the consumers?
Our rule of choice at the CPC is look before you leap. First thing, you must always, we say, beware, be careful, be aware, get information. That's the first thing I need to say. Having said that, there are terms and conditions to every contract. Most contracts have terms and conditions attached. The next thing you need to do is understand these terms and conditions before you get into them. Third thing is refuse to be rushed into a contract. If the person who you are entering into a contract with is in a hurry, a red light should go off immediately that there's something that you need to know before you go into the contract. If he's saying, why just sign, we can discuss all these others later, then you should begin to think, why do I have to sign now and discuss later? Why don't I discuss before I sign?
Exactly.
And then if you are illiterate, it goes without saying that you should seek the advice of somebody who is knowledgeable in that field. They are your lawyer, your financial advisor, your brother who is literate, your economist uncle. Just seek advice before you enter into this contract, because once you go into it, like I said, it's a long, windy, tortuous road that you have to go to get out of it.
Okay, so now let's talk about a situation where, the consumer finds himself in a very unfortunate situation, more or less. He has, gotten into a contract that, there was no meeting of minds, like you say. He didn't understand that, this term means that or whatever. What is the role of the Consumer Protection Council? How can you safeguard the rights of the consumer in this respect?
Let's take it one step at a time. We expect that every consumer will do something for himself. That's why I talked about being careful. You've been very careful. You've done everything you need to do. Now there's a problem. Okay? You've insisted on getting a receipt. You've done everything you need to do, and you still find that there's a problem. first thing. Stand up for yourself. That's the first rule. Stand up for yourself. Insist on your right. It's your right. Insist on getting that right. I mean, don't let your right be trampled upon, roughshod by anybody. Okay? Then, complain to that service provider. Insist on your right. Complain to somebody. And then, if you still do not have any form of redress from these two people, then make a formal complaint to the Consumer Protection Council. Now, before you come to the Consumer Protection Council, one of the things we say to you always is, please try and ensure that you have a proof of transaction. Don't enter into a contract, nothing signed, nothing, there's no evidence of a transaction, because we're a law-abiding organization. We have rules and regulations that guide us. So one of the things we want to be sure of is the fact that before we even say you have a right, we need to be sure. We need to be able to check. We need to be able to do a background check with who you are complaining against. Because if your right stops where his own right begins. So ensure that you have done the right thing and then make your complaints.
Okay, just for clarification, talking about proof, I walk into a shop and I purchase a product. I do realize later that it didn't meet the specification that I wanted. What proof do I need in that regard?
Purchase receipt. Purchase receipt. It shows you paid for something. It shows you bought something from that place. So we can take it up from there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chimagun. It's been a delight having you.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Still to come are our usual segments. Don't go away. To make a complaint to the Consumer Protection Council in order to obtain redress over a product or a service, you contact the seller or service provider and present your query. Ensure you keep relevant records of your conversation. If the problem is not resolved at this level, complain to CPC. Your complaint should be clear, providing relevant facts such as where and when you bought the product or service. You should state clearly what you want from the seller or service provider. Is it a refund, a repair, or a replacement? Complaints should be sent either to the CPC office nearest to you in any of our zonal offices across Nigeria, CPC head office in Abuja, the official email of the council, or by telephone. CPC does not charge fees for complaints. What is the difference between Navteq and CPC? Navteq is the sector-specific agency of the federal government of Nigeria, responsible for regulating and controlling the manufacture, importation, exportation, advertisement, distribution, sale, and use of food, drugs, cosmetics, medical devices, chemicals, and packaged water. While CPC is the apex consumer protection agency of the federal government of Nigeria, responsible for enforcing compliance with all consumer protection legislation, safeguarding consumers' interests, and ensuring value for money in all areas of products and services. In other words, while Navteq sets the ground norms for the behavior of businesses under its jurisdiction, the CPC ensures consumers of Navteq-regulated products have value for their money. For example, if a consumer of Navteq product suffers an injury or loss, it is only the CPC that can ensure that the consumer gets redress, which can be in form of a payment of hospital bills or compensation for any loss suffered.
I bought a brand new car from CFAO Motors through Diamond Bank over 3 years ago. But since the time I bought this vehicle, it's been one mechanical fault or the other. So before the expiration of the warranty of 2 years, I wrote to them that the car should be replaced. But both Diamond Bank and CFAO did not respond to my letters. So I came to CPC So CPC came to my